Person in Person is brought to you by the Perineum Group, the only truly centrist news organization.
That's right, Greg. We're in the sweet spot between partisan extremes. When tain't the left and tain't the right.
It's Perineum.
Tonight, on Person in Person.
1,000 Years of Solitude.
More fungus among us.
Cock block lock shock.
I'd like to plead contagious, Your Honor.
Taking Gammon from Gammon.
It's Mrs. Potato Dead. All these stories plus sports, weather, food crime, that's tonight.
On Person in Person.
Good evening, wherever you are, whoever you are, and welcome to Person in Person. I'm Gene Person.
And I'm Greg Person.
Absolutely no relation. Person in Person is a news show for people who don't like news shows, by people who don't like news shows. Another week where nothing of consequence happened on any of the major news networks. What are the odds?
I know, it's been just a real dead zone the entire month of January.
Yeah, it's like, come on, America, wake up. I would like to say that I did listen to the Brose podcast for last week, and it just made me really sad.
Why is that?
So they're all kicked back, and they're talking about some funny stuff, admittedly, and they're all enjoying all these alcoholic beverages that up until like a month ago, I could consume safely without concern, and now could put me in anaphylaxis.
That's true. You used to be able to bro down with some Brose, but now...
Yeah, it sucks. It really sucks. And, this hit about the same time my wife discovered that she was gluten intolerant. And so we're all making sacrifices up in this household.
Okay, so here is my solution for you. Are you ready? This is kind of a workaround, a life hack, if you will, for alcohol.
Yeah.
What you want to do is
Let me have it.
Take a couple Xannies. You want to crush those up into the soda of your choice. And there you go. You got something that's going to bring you down a little bit. It's got some bubbles. It's got some flavor. It's not quite
okay. I can just pick up Xanax in a supermarket aisle, right?
Literally anywhere. Here.
Okay.
Fine. Okay. Here's what you do: is go to a high school, find the coolest looking kid, and ask him if he knows how to hook you up, and he will, because he's cool. They'll just assume you're somebody's dad.
Oh, maybe. I am somebody's dad after all. Anyway, enough about us. Let's pop the cork on tonight's stories. It's May news.
All right, so first up this week, a guy who I guess you could charitably call a televangelist. I mean, he's kind of a preacher / cult leader on TV in Turkey. He has been sentenced to 1,075 years in prison for a whole range of crimes, including sexual assault, abuse of minors, fraud, and espionage.
That's like a life sentence for Moses.
Yeah. There's very few even biblical figures are going to be able, but he'll probably be up for parole in 400 years. What with these lenient sentencing laws these days?
Yeah, these liberals, I tell you. So obviously a creep, probably a sociopath.
Oh yeah, 100%. He is a real piece of work, this guy. He says on the stand to a judge, he says that he has close to 1,000, quote, girlfriends, that he is, quote, extraordinarily potent, and that, quote, there is an overwhelming or an overflowing of love in my heart for women. So he's basically selling this to the judge on the stand.
Right.
It's classic narcissism.
That's some Ted Bundy level stuff. Right. That is, he's been coasting by on his own charm for so long that he thinks it's going to work in a court of law. I
mean, and I've seen pictures of this guy. He's pretty handsome, but he's not like 1,000 girlfriends handsome.
Yeah.
So,
well, he's maybe 1,000 years in prison handsome.
Ooh, yeah. Now it's getting dark. Now, the thing is that news outlets in America seem divided on whether to call him a preacher or a cult leader, to call his group a church or a cult. Now, I agree that the distinction between a cult and a church is fairly fuzzy and arbitrary, but sometime before the 1,000th sex slave, you've already earned that cult leader designation, I think.
I feel like that's pretty far from the line.
Yeah, I don't know what's the acceptable number of girlfriends for a person to have simultaneously. It's less than 1,000.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
And these young women, they really were, it sounds like, under duress. One of his victims who testified said that they were forced to take birth control so that they wouldn't get pregnant. And sure enough, there were 69,000 birth control pills in his home, which is not so nice.
So this story is so much worse to me than mushrooms in the ears.
I mean, morally, I agree with you. It's just
okay.
I mean, I'm not saying that it's like wrong to have mushrooms growing in your ears. It's just unfortunate. I'm just saying in terms of the pure visceral reaction of my body to the mushroom story, can't do it. I just can't do it. But you are correct, though. This story's horrible. Like, no joke.
This is why religion sometimes gives me the creeps. I know there are opportunists everywhere, but this kind of thing seems to happen kind of a lot in religious organizations.
Well, because the thing is, when there's nothing on earth that's going to make you do the thing that you really don't want to do, sometimes God will do it. And that's really, it's unfortunate. But yeah, I think the reason that religion gets, such a bad rap for this kind of behavior is that religion is a really powerful motivator for people. And if you know that and know how to exploit it, you can make them do things that an earthly authority wouldn't be able to.
Fair enough. Our next story, I chose this one just for you, buddy. A 30-year-old man with bipolar type 1 went off his meds. Between manic and depressive phases, he discovered some information online on how psilocybin, the hallucinogenic compound found in mushrooms, can treat anxiety and depression. Rather than taking psilocybin, or just eating the mushrooms, this dude decided to brew a tea and inject it into his bloodstream. Yeah, that was his ticket to 3 weeks in the hospital on the verge of total organ failure. And guess what? He had little mushrooms growing in his blood vessels.
Oh, jeez.
So the initial symptoms he suffered from included fatigue, nausea, vomiting blood, and jaundice. His family found him and took him to the hospital. This man wasn't coherent at all or able to answer a single question. That's when the doctor found the mushrooms growing in his blood vessels. Multiple organs were failing, including liver and kidneys. He's really lucky to have survived, honestly.
Yeah, I'll say.
The docs sent him home for after 22 days with a long-term plan for antifungals and antibiotics. While in the hospital, his blood had to be scrubbed and he had to be put on a ventilator.
Let me ask you, do you at this point have a Google alert for mushroom horror?
No, this actually is just a story that I stumbled upon. And I was like, yeah, I'll include that. But odd fact, it's not the last mushroom related story I'm going to be telling you tonight.
Man, this is okay. So many questions. First of all, why would you make a tea of the mushrooms and shoot it into your... Because nobody told him to do that. Yeah, I mean, I guarantee that none of the resources that he looked up on the internet told him to do that. They all told you to eat the mushrooms because that's what you do.
Well, no, making a tea from the mushrooms is a common practice, but you drink that. You don't shoot it into your bloodstream.
Well, and I'm sure because when I was with you when you said, oh, he made a tea of the mushrooms, I'm like, sure, okay. But then, because even if the resource said, oh, you should make a tea with the mushroom, like, he knows that you don't inject tea in your body. That's not how you get tea in you.
Right.
I have nothing to say to this guy. Like, you're a fucking idiot. You arguably, it would have been better for everybody if you had died. Like, I hate to be harsh, but there it is.
I feel like that's a pretty bold stance, but I got your back, bro.
I'm just saying, like, I'm sure this guy's suffering, because you mentioned that he was trying to do this to treat his bipolar disorder.
Mm-hmm.
But, that doesn't make you stupid. Like, you know how tea works. So use your head, bro.
Right.
If you survive this thing, which it sounds like is still not 100% a sure thing, but if he survives, just stop. Yeah, stop and think for a minute. What are you doing?
When asked why I could possibly think any of this was a good idea, the man did offer the reporter a quote, and the quote was, "Mamma mia!"
I was thinking it would be either that or "It's a me, Mario."
I thought about doing that one, but I decided Mamma Mia was funnier.
That was really good. So here's a story about a different kind of mushroom tip. The owners of the Cellmate Chastity Cage, which is a BDSM gizmo, which is designed to enclose the penis and prevent unauthorized erections. They had their boners held for ransom by a hacker who demanded Bitcoin to release them.
All right, somebody, I'm going to need a beer and a Dremel.
Well, the funny thing is, like, because they interviewed some of the people who had been contacted by this hacker who'd locked their chastity cages. And the guy said, well, fortunately, I wasn't wearing mine at the time. And I thought the point of those was that you're not supposed to take them off, right? Like, it's a lifestyle thing.
I have no idea, but maybe.
But that guy was lucky. I mean, the thing is, people got to stop connecting their shit to the internet.
That's true.
Because, I mean, people who put the Bluetooth on your cock cage, they're not cybersecurity experts. And in fact, this company had been previously contacted by actual cybersecurity experts to say, hey, listen, there's a huge gaping hole in your connection security right here. You got to do something about that. And apparently they hadn't taken any action before the hacker struck.
I was just thinking, who never gets their dick locked in chastity permanently? The Amish.
I mean, but if you got the regular, like, wrought iron lock and key chastity cage, that's a lot heavier. And so
I guess, but that's not as susceptible to just random lol hacks.
Yeah, but I mean, you got to worry about rust. You got to worry about all kinds of things, But my grandfather actually had one of those antique Amish cock cages, weighed 40 pounds. So
wow.
Well, also my grandfather was blessed in many ways, so that might explain why his was so heavy. But the thing that worries me about this is that this is a huge blow for the field of teledildonics, which I'm excited about.
Right.
We have to resolve these issues. Yeah, we have to get this sorted so that people feel like these products are safe and secure, and we can all start messing around with them. I don't know what our best and brightest are doing in this awful world that we live in. I mean, I'm not talking about people like, Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk. I know they're not our best and brightest. They're morons. But there are genuinely smart people still on this earth. I don't know where they are right now, but they need to apply themselves to this problem because we got to get these teledildonics off the ground.
So I refuse to blame the victims in this case, but I do have a question for you, Greg. If they're chastity fetishists, isn't this all kind of the point?
Oh my God, you read my mind because I literally had the same thought while I was researching the story. I was like, well, this is just another way of being domed, right? This is like a spicy surprise. Right. So no, I'm 100% on board. I think maybe they don't patch the security issue, and this just becomes another one of those little risks that you run to add a little spice
sexy.
to it. Yeah.
Yeah. On to our next story. Devin Lewis and Blair McDermott, a couple from New York City, are facing charges for selling cocaine and heroin. They found a novel way to get out of court. Lewis shared a photo with the court that purported to show McDermott had received a positive COVID test. A month later, he again showed a different photo that indicated she had contracted the disease again. Eventually, the trial was started, but an investigation was also launched, and sure enough, McDermott had tested negative both times and they had falsified the documents. Modern problems require modern solutions. Additionally, Lewis provided a doctor's note indicating that he had asthma and that any jail time would be a health risk for him. But guess what? Also a forgery. We tried to reach out to Lewis to contact his doctor, but Lewis just said, you wouldn't know him. He goes to a different school. The couple obviously now faces forgery charges, among others. There's a lot of postured moral admonishment from the DA's office. Like, listen, any DA is so good at lying that they get paid to do it. And is pretending to have COVID really all that low? I don't know, but you probably shouldn't forge notes from the doctor. You could get detention for that.
Well, yeah, in this case, they are literally trying to avoid detention, but they're bringing that high school mindset into it, where they're like, oh, if I can just put it off for a couple of weeks or put it off for a month, somehow it'll all work out. Like, no, you got two options here. You can either face this situation, or you can run from it so hard that you start a new life in a different city. Those are your options.
Yeah, there's no half-assing something like that.
Yeah, you're not going to keep bringing doctor's notes into court forever.
How about the next story?
So, travelers from the UK who are going to Europe, to the EU countries, are being prevented from entering until they've thrown away all their foodstuffs, because there are rules preventing the unregulated import of agricultural products from non-EU countries. So, before January, you could bring a sandwich to France. Why not? But now they'll make you throw it away. And they're apparently...
Yeah, I heard about this, the ham sandwiches thing.
Yeah, there's a video of some Dutch guys. They pull over a British tourist, and they got to throw out their ham sandwiches, which to a Brit is like the most horrible thing imaginable. And if you had told them...
It was pretty funny to watch him just begging to keep the bread, at least. The bread.
The bread, at least. Well, I mean, at this point, you're like, yo, this is my lunch. I didn't have a backup plan. This is, come on. It's like if somebody, just rolled up and took your lunch for security purposes, you'd be like, the fuck? But, the thing is, I'm of two minds about all these Brexit consequences, because my first impulse, of course, is to be like, well, that's what you get, dummy, you bunch of dummies. But then here's the thing. First of all, only 52% of the people who voted for Brexit. The other 48 were Remainers, so it's pretty close. Second of all, nobody ever imagines that their vote is actually going to have consequences, because it usually doesn't. And then
again, I don't know. Populism does dangerous things sometimes in the wrong hands.
Well,
like case in point, the last 4 years and possibly the next 4.
Well, and the thing about Brexit was that a lot of it was that conservatives and UKIP guys and BNP guys told everybody, hey, if we leave the EU, we're going to have so much more money to put toward the NHS. And so a lot of people were voting for it thinking that they were saving the NHS, which is something that people really care about. Everybody loves their socialized medicine. But, when they did pass the Brexit, did they, put any money toward the NHS? Shit, no. So,
of course
not. People got conned, and they honestly, a lot of people sort of voted as a protest vote. And then when it actually passed, had to go and look up what it meant the next day. So, because people don't feel like their votes matter, and usually they don't. And the one time it does, it fucks you in the ass. Excuse my French.
Right. Oh, I speak French.
Well, my apologies to our French listeners. I know you hate it when I butcher your language, so...
I mean, Sacred Blue.
See, that's going to get us...
I'm just going to keep making that same joke over and over.
Well, Zootalore, that's going to get us some emails, dude.
Yep.
So what's our next story?
A woman was out walking her dog and came upon a grisly discovery. A human toe poking out of the muddy ground of a field in Gateshead. Of course, the police hopped to it, searched the area, ultimately discovering that it was not in fact a human foot. Rather, it was a potato with a small mushroom growing next to it. Police, I know, it's delightful. Police applauded this citizen for being proactive in reporting the potential crime. They say, worst case scenario, the dogs get a snack. Of course, this is the police, so the worst case scenario is significantly worse than that. But they do make a good point about being proactive and letting someone know that you might see a toe poking out of the ground. So first a mannequin, then this human toe turns out to be a potato. Not for nothing, but I feel like this really validates my hypothesis about seeing only the worst in these kinds of situations in a post-pandemic world.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think human psychology is now primed to assume the worst to such a degree that whatever you see out of the corner of your eye, you're like, oh, it's probably a dead body or a bunch of dead bodies.
And of course, this happened in Britain, which is already the worst.
But here's my question, though. So, and maybe this is not the correct protocol. You can tell me if this is the wrong thing to do. But if you see a dead body or a piece of a dead body, or you think you do, you got to go up and poke it, right? Just poke it to make sure that it's...
No, actually, you absolutely should not. You definitely should not, ever.
Okay, but...
The little Gene who wanted to be a crime scene investigator is admonishing you right now. That's absolutely not what you should do. You should never disturb a potential crime scene.
And I get that, but...
The worst case is that you might incriminate yourself in some way. The best case is that you might hinder their chances of catching whoever committed the crime.
I get that. I'm not saying, take it home and put it in your chest freezer. I'm saying if you see what looks like a toe poking out of the ground and you're pretty sure it's a toe, you're going to go wiggle it. And then when the cops show up, you say, yes, I did wiggle it. So, I did have that contact with it. That was the extent of my contact. Same thing with if you see, a dead body on the beach, you go up, you poke it, and you say, I poked it with this piece of driftwood 2 times on the cheek. Seemed like a dead body, so I called you. I feel like that's better than...
You are so far afield of what is correct or right or prudent. I don't even have strong enough words to condemn what you are advocating here.
Well, the alternative is that you call the police and they get real excited because they think there's a dead body and they get to investigate some crime. They come down with 6 cars. There's 14 guys there, and it's a mannequin, and everybody's really disappointed.
No, because they get a great story out of it. So at one point I was on my way into work and I spotted a pipe that looked suspicious. And I thought, hey, maybe that's a bomb. I didn't go poking it with a stick.
Well, but dead bodies aren't going to explode.
You don't know that.
If somebody is going to start putting bombs inside dead bodies and leaving them for people to find...
Somebody already did. The Joker.
Yeah, but the Joker's not real. He's like the Boogeyman or Michael Jackson.
So this is the second story with mushroom-related content. I swear that, again, is totally unplanned. There just appears to be a lot of mushroom activity in the world lately. Your reaction to the story last week had nothing to do with it.
Uh-huh, sure.
I do have a new nickname for potatoes as a result of this story, though. Meditators.
Yeah, I like that.
It's kind of a thinker because the toes are metatarsals.
Right. And then, that's good. That works on a lot of levels. That's very pleasing. You do have to chew on it for a second, but when you do, it's like, oh, that's pretty good. I like that. It's like a piece of Roquefort cheese.
Unless a potato is properly cooked, you have to chew on it for a second anyway. So
now let me ask you, when you were a kid, did you eat raw potatoes as a snack? Was that a thing your parents gave you?
No.
Okay.
Is that something your parents did to you, Greg?
Oh yeah. Well, because I think you already know this. I think we've already talked about it. I actually grew up on a potato farm, so there are always potatoes available. And so when we wanted a snack and it wasn't dinner time yet, just peel a potato and put some salt on it and eat it. It's a perfectly good way to eat a potato. Huh. Now, Gene, do you remember David Rush, the guy from Idaho who likes to set world records?
I do.
Well, you'll be happy to know he set another one this week. It's pretty cool, actually. He chopped through 21 apples in 30 seconds while juggling 3 knives. So
nice.
He's juggling knives, and of course there's video of this. It's on his YouTube page. He's juggling knives. Mm-hmm. His buddy is lobbing the apples at him, and he's slicing them, and he's continuing to juggle. So it's pretty fun to watch.
This is maybe a little more STEM friendly than some of the other ones he's done, because with all those apples...
Got lots of stems.
maybe it's that even wasn't even the direction I was going. I was thinking maybe this is like a live action word problem.
Oh, it's like if I have 21 apples divided by 3 knives, how many apples do I have?
Right.
I get it. But it doesn't make me want to study anything though.
That's true.
He has almost succeeded in inspiring me to see if there's a world record that I could break, because he's broken like 150 world records, and he seems like a great guy, and he seems like a reasonably smart guy and a hard worker. I don't think he's like an Ozymandias type guy or anything. So if he can break 150, there's probably at least one that I could break.
Well, I think at this rate, Greg, you're on a steady clip to beat the record of most stories on a podcast about David Rush. Get a couple more in there, and we'll ring up the ghost of Alec Guinness.
Well, he'll be with me always, so I can contact him at any time. Now, okay, so we've had 2 stories featured about David Rush. I feel like that's probably good, but if we did a couple more for safety, no one would be able to touch us.
Right.
So we'll see you next week, David. Get cracking, breaking another record.
Right on. In St. Louis, a cave used for storing beer has been discovered underneath a community garden. This happened in the Benton Park neighborhood. McHose and English Cave Recovery discovered the cave last May, measuring 30 foot wide and 7.5 foot tall. And the headline of this article was "Beer Cave from the 1800s." But no actual beer was found in the cave. They just call it that because St. Louis was a major brew town. I think they just assume any cavity they find was used for beer in some way.
Oh, just like your cavities used to be used for beer and now they're not.
Oh, sad. Apparently the cave was also used to grow mushrooms, unlike my cavities. Because we just can't seem to avoid that subject. They discovered the cave and its rough dimensions using LiDAR.
We could avoid the subject if you stopped seeking it out. I
am absolutely not seeking it out.
I'm not judging you. I'm just saying that this is your fault, and I do blame you.
All right. I like to think, or at least imagine, that since no beer was actually found in this story, but they continue to call it a beer cave, maybe they got the cave wall onto a screen and a shadow passed along the wall and they called it beer.
Right, and that's the tragic thing about the cave is they think that's what beer is. But, they have to be turned away toward the light, toward the actual beer.
Greetings, gentle listeners. If you enjoy this podcast, you may also like Brose, a mirthy talk show starring 4 bros who sip wine and consider questions submitted by you, the audience, about current events, pop culture, and which Muppet you should get tattooed on your back. Subscribe to Brose wherever you get your podcasts. That's Brose. Brose, the podcast for those who drink rosé.
All right, on to the emotional weather. As every week, this week for the emotional weather, we have chosen 3 emotions to profile. This week, Loopy, Snoopy, and Poopy.
All right, so let me tell you about something Loopy. And let me be clear, this is not intended to disparage at all, because I am a huge fan of this guy. It's actor Nicolas Cage. People think that he's loony, but honestly, he is operating on an intellectual, aesthetic, and spiritual level that is far beyond the average man. And like all true shamans and mystics in the universe, this puts him at odds with the ordinary people of the world, and it makes him seem unhinged. But he is absolutely...
Frankly, I think he's a national treasure.
Well, you got to appreciate him while he's here, because he'll be gone in 60 seconds.
Oh.
But is he a little loopy? Yes. Is he a genius? 100%, unquestionably. So me, huge Nicolas Cage fan, and that's what I got.
My story for Loopy is about 2 guys, Brian Tolentino and Juan Lopez of Florida, who were arrested for robbing graves. The two targeted veterans' burial grounds because the spirit is so much stronger in a hero. That is a direct quote. They were, as it turns out, stealing good old-fashioned body parts from the veterans. Detectives, after serving a search warrant, found a shrine accompanied by several human skulls. How they were caught? Well, part of their ritual was that they would sip Bacardi at the grave sites and then chew and puff on cigars before opening the graves, which they said would protect them from the spirits, but also they left behind some of those cigar butts, and those had a lot of DNA.
So this is witches, right?
Felt pretty loopy to me.
Well, this is magic. They're doing magic with these veteran skulls.
I definitely think that was the intent here.
So what do you think they needed all those strong spirits for?
I don't know. Why does anyone need a strong spirit? Probably to take the edge off.
That's true. That's a good point. So I want to tell you about something Snoopy. There is an app called Flow, FLO, which helps its users track their period and ovulation data. Handy thing to have, potentially. Now, of course, because this is such a personal thing, users were assured firmly that their data would be kept absolutely private. But of course, Flow was lying through its vagina dentata, selling the data to Google and Facebook and God knows who else. They did settle with the FCC, the FTC, and notified users that they are selling their most intimate details to advertisers. But of course, the consumers aren't going to be compensated because that's the business model for apps. You think they're giving you a product, but actually they're turning you into one. They are collecting your data and selling it. Right. That's the model. And any company that gives you an app to use and says, oh no, we don't share your information, they are lying to you because otherwise they would have no business model. So just assume that every detail about you is in the cloud somewhere. And if you don't want Google to know when your next ovulation is, don't put it on an app.
You know who never has to worry about their ovulation data being leaked? The Amish.
No, that's true. Are you working your way up to telling me that you have joined an Amish ordnung?
Oh, absolutely not.
Okay, I mean, if you were, it's cool.
I'm just an admirer.
I mean, frankly, so am I. There's a lot to appreciate about the sort of simple life sects. Not like we got a lot of Mennonites up here that are not quite as stringent as what people think of when they think of the Amish, but they're good folks, simple folks, hardworking folks. I could never join one of those sects because I hate work. I genuinely do. And, the idea of getting up and putting in a full day's hard labor, no, pass. Make someone else do it.
Well, my choice for Snoopy this week, if you are one of these terrible fascists who made the move to Parler because regular social media isn't batshit crazy enough for you, good news. Everything you posted, all your photos, your IP address, and your metadata is now in the hands of the US government, and apparently anyone else who wanted it. While Amazon did take Parler down, a crafty hacker discovered that the security behind the site was essentially wet tissue paper and happy thoughts, and thus was able to archive 99% of the content, including lots of shockingly racist and violent posts. On social media?
Mm-hmm. Well, and when we've talked about this before, I think social media in general is a bad idea.
Oh, yeah. It's a cesspool.
The fundamental problem is that it's not social. It replaces socialization.
And that is primarily what all of us are doing on social media is we're digging out our own little bubbles. And the more that we do, the more we shield ourselves from the reality beyond, the more we begin to become convinced that the reality we see is actual reality. And that is, it's already causing a host of issues.
It's the porn of relationships because there's nothing to it. It's the stimulation that makes you feel some of the same things that you would feel like if you had a genuine social relationship with somebody, but it's not real. It's, it's like how snacks are the porn of food. You eat a Cheeto, it's got a crunch, it's got a flavor, It has the stimulatory elements that you associate with a food, but it's not a food. It won't nourish you in the same way that social media will not nourish you, which isn't to say that I don't use it. I'm just saying I don't use it as a substitute for life. Please don't do that, guys.
Yeah, neither do I. It's just a bad idea.
It's just like there is a place in your life for porn and there is a place in your diet for snacks. There is a place for social media as part of a balanced whatever you're doing. But it is an indulgence and it will lead to your ruin if you overindulge.
All right. How about Poopy?
Yeah, that got nice and moralistic, didn't it? So, Gene, are you familiar with Toxoplasmosa gondii?
That's what killed Tommy in Trainspotting.
Is it? I think I saw that movie once. It didn't resonate with me the way it did with a lot of folks. But it's the parasite that is found in raw meat and cat poop that for a while they thought might contribute to schizophrenia. I think they've kind of decided that link isn't real. But now they're thinking that it might increase the likelihood of developing brain cancer. Now, they were careful to point out two things. One, that the link between T. gondii exposure and brain cancer is still pretty weak, if it is even real. And also, they pointed out that most of the time you're getting toxoplasmosa from raw and undercooked meat rather than from cat poop. But just to be safe, train your cats to use the toilet. I know they can do it. I've seen it on TikTok. It's adorable.
And really, I mean, the cats only get it because they eat mice and rats who have it. It's a really interesting fact that the parasite in the mice and the rats makes them less afraid of the smell of cat urine and more likely to be around cats. It like calms that instinct in them, which encourages the cats to eat them, and then the cats
because the parasite can only reproduce in the digestive tract of the cat, if I recall.
Right. All right, my Poopy story. If you live in the Toronto, Ontario area, there's a new service you may want to check out for a nominal fee, only $4.20 plus tax. A company will send a package with 30 grams of cow poop to your friends. The company is called Battle Shits, which is an awesome name. For only 50 cents more, you can add a message to the poo parcel. Each box also includes a little ad for Battle Shits inviting the recipient to respond in kind. So is it gross? Yeah, a little, but it's also pretty entertaining. If nothing else, then for a few, something and giggles. As you know, every week our investigative team presents a detailed and harrowing story on food crime. This week, Greg Person has the story.
Okay, so I'm just going to dive right in. Tim Hortons, which you may know as the Dunkin' Donuts of America's hat, in 2017, so don't be afraid, this is not an active food crime. As far as I can tell, this is no longer available. But in 2017, they debuted a buffalo wing flavored latte.
Yeah. Buffalo sauce and coffee. It's like both of those things have a distinct gastronomic effect on me, and like the same gastronomic effect.
And I'm guessing that was the appeal. Is like, man, if you thought coffee was going to help you in your morning before, like, wait until you try buffalo wing coffee. So it was made with espresso, steamed milk, mocha, and bold buffalo sauce flavor, topped with whipped cream and a zesty buffalo seasoning.
There's so much wrong with this. There is so much wrong with it.
Here's the good news. The good news is that it was just bad. It wasn't horrible. It wasn't the worst thing that anybody ever tried. Most of the reviews, and there was one actually who described it directly as simply cayenne sprinkled on a garbage latte. So that seems bearable.
And it doesn't exist anymore. It's gone the way of the Cheeto cookie.
Well, here's the weird thing, because I did some research on, like, why would it occur to you to make a buffalo wing flavored coffee? And it was because both Tim Hortons, the donut franchise, and Buffalo Wings both debuted in 1964. Now, I would posit I would say that there are better things that happened in 1964 to base a coffee off of than buffalo wings. Almost anything. Disney's Mary Poppins came out in 1964. The first season of Bewitched debuted in 1964. Kitty Genovese was murdered in 1964. Any one of those is a better idea for a latte flavor. I mean, to Tim Hortons, you know what you did because it's not still on the menu. You know that was a stupid idea. But you knew before you did it. Just like 99% of all bad ideas, you knew before you did it that it was a bad idea, and Dupree Satan whispered in your ear, and you did it anyway.
And you know what Dupree Satan whispered? Buffalo, 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 buffalo.
That's really good. Thank you for that. That is a linguistics joke for our nerdier audience members, but it's also one that I enjoy a great deal.
Yeah, same here. Let's go to sports.
All right, so for sports this week, I want to tell you about a sporting event that, like a lot of sporting events, unfortunately didn't get a chance to transpire last year. We're hoping that we will get to see it again this year. We've got until October because it is the West Coast Giant Pumpkin Regatta. Now, folks, you might recall in one of our earlier episodes, I was very curious about what happens to giant pumpkins after they're weighed at state fairs. And in 2004, the Pacific Giant Vegetable Growers, they were looking for a place like a lake or a river to paddle their giant pumpkins, like you do.
Mm-hmm. I know I do.
They came to Tualatin, Oregon, which is a small town in the north of Oregon. And the rest is history. They still provide the pumpkins, the Pacific Giant Vegetable Growers do, but the race now attracts thousands of racers and spectators each year. People do wear costumes to compete in the regatta, so you'll see the winners listed like Tom Jones, Ace Ventura, because they're listed by both their name and their costume. So that's cool. Mm-hmm. The gourds themselves are brightly decorated. Of course, they're not carved because that would make them not seaworthy. But it looks like a lot of fun. Normally it's like a fair kind of a thing. They have T-shirts.
Yeah, I'm not too far from Tualatin. I could head up there on a day trip and squash the competition.
That's real good, Pumpkin. I appreciate that. That was a very gourd joke.
Quick question. Is pie provided?
Ooh, good question. Actually, do you mind hanging on while I Google that real quick? Because I want to know. I mean, a pie eating contest I could destroy. Like, I couldn't do a regatta because I'm scared of boats. But a pumpkin pie eating contest? Yeah, let me at them big orange boys. I'll do it.
All right.
Okay, so I am looking at... Okay, well, this is the City of Tualatin City Hall website, so it would take me too long to find it, so I'm just going to move on with my life.
All right, our final segment tonight, as every week, is Person to Person in Person, where we share your valuable feedback with our audience. This week, we have an email from G Person who writes, Dear Mr.'s Person, how are you? I am fine. You had an ad running that said your Origin episode was coming, but it still hasn't posted yet. What up with that? Sincerely, G Person. Well, G, we're working on it. Sometimes these things take time, and this one's going to take a little while for us to put together. But it will be coming before the end of 2021. I promise you that.
See, the thing you guys have got to understand is that our origins are shrouded in mystery. And we have to solve that mystery first before we can even do the show.
Right, so there's a whole lot of stuff up in this mix. We've got audio engineering and archaeology.
Yeah, I mean, you got to understand, we both woke up on an island with no memory of how we got there, like Patrick McGowan on The Prisoner. We're the guy from Memento. We're chasing John G at the same time we're trying to record a podcast.
So give us a break.
So cut us a little slack. Yeah.
That's all we're saying. Folks, that's all the show we have for you tonight. We invite you to participate in person-to-person and person, and there's so many ways for you to get yourself heard. Send us an email, personpersonshow@gmail.com. Drop us a voicemail, 541-249-5933. Find us on Twitter, @AnchorPersons, and on Facebook, @PersonandPersonShow. Find us on your favorite podcatchers. Please subscribe, review, and rate the podcast, or simply tell a friend. And check out our website, personandpersonshow.com. I launched an endeavor this week to create the Person and Person theme park, the official Person and Person theme park called Park and Park.
So it's probably going to be a while, folks, before we can get the actual physical theme park off the ground. But until then, this model that Gene is making is going to be scrupulously exact.
And this is all going to be constructed in Roller Coaster Tycoon, one of the greatest games in history. Until next time, this is Gene Person saying, you should always end a comedy set with a callback.
And this is Greg Person saying, don't put mushroom tea in your blood. Good night.
Let's-a go!